What's going on, YouTube? This is Barrett with Espresso Outlet. Today I have a sound test. I've been getting lots of questions on how loud is the DF64V. And I think there's no better way to test it than with one of the quieter grinders that I've ever used, which is the Atom 75. So I'd say the two quietest would be the Atom 75 and the Kyoto E37. They're just extremely quiet. And to begin with, we're going to test with no beans in it. So they've both been cleaned. They have no beans inside of them. I have this decibel meter. It measures in dBA. And I've positioned it between 18 and 20 inches away from the grinders. They're pretty much lined up spout to spout in the front. So it might be give or take an inch or two between 18 to 20 inches, but I'd say that it is a very consistent side-by-side comparison between the two in terms of distance. So 18 inches, you're probably going to stand maybe 2 feet away from the grinder when you're using it. So I felt like that was a pretty good baseline of where to begin. Let's just be quiet for a second. When this decibel meter goes below 30 decibels, it says low. So let's just see how quiet it is just with ambient noise. So we're below 30 decibels, refrigerator's not running, air conditioner's not running, heater's not running, nothing's running. And we're gonna start out by just running them with no beans. So let's start with the DF64V. This is at 1800 RPM. I'm going to call that a pretty consistent, let's do it. .8 decibels. So pretty quiet. I have the Atom set up since it is the automatic dosing. You can do a manual dose, but I just have it set up for 10 seconds so that nothing's in the way. So again, this has no beans in it. Let's give it a try. I'm going to call it 54 decibels on the Atom 75. So extremely quiet. Again, this is with no beans in them, so obviously it's going to be quite a bit quieter anyway. When we introduce beans, that's when it's going to get a lot louder. So let me get some beans figured out and I will be right back. Okay, so I've loaded 18 grams of beans into each. They're identical beans. I'm going to be using the same beans for everything today. Different beans, they can be a little bit harder, might make a little bit more noise depending on the grinder. So to start with, we have 18 grams. Normally I'd recommend doing a hot start on this, but just to get a baseline again, I've preloaded it and we are below 30. So we're below 30 decibels and I'm gonna turn this on and let's watch it. So I think it was about 83.6 was the peak. It's still running, very quiet. So there's the Turin DF64V. With the Atom 75, I typically dose into a portafilter. That's really what it's designed for. It is more of an espresso grinder. I'd consider it only an espresso grinder. So again, I've loaded 18 grams. It's gonna go pretty fast. So I'm going to be watching it as soon as I trigger, and then it's probably just going to idle. So there we are below 30. I think about 68.2 or 5. I couldn't really see it. It went pretty fast. You can tell that the Atom 75 is a very quick grinder. It has 75 millimeter burrs, huge motor. So it makes very short time of grinding 18 grams. So that's it grinding at full speed on this DF64V. Let's do a couple tests grinding slower now. Okay, I just loaded 18 grams and we set this DF64V on 1200 RPMs. Let's give it a go. I think it peaked at 79.9. I'll have to go back and watch the video, but again, quite quiet. Okay, so I've pre-weighed 18 grams and we're going to run it at its slowest speed, which is 600 RPM. I don't recommend putting the beans in first. I definitely recommend doing the hot start. So I've pre-weighed out 18 grams and then we're going to start it. So you peaked at about 75 without this cap, and I've noticed that putting the cap on actually makes it quite a bit quieter. So I noticed it went down to 71 or 72 with the cap on. You can do the hot start and it has the anti-popcorn in the top, so you're not going to get all these beans flying up, which is a really nice feature for the hot start on this grinder. So there's your noise comparison, kind of in a nutshell. I'll go through and I'll write down all the peak values that I saw. And it's going to be plus or minus a little bit, so don't be too hard on me. But we're going to see which one and what speed really shined the best. So I went through all the videos and I tried to assign a value to each of the grinders as we ground. And at certain points I kind of had to just pick a value. So if it's a couple points off, I mean, it's the value I chose. So we're just going to roll with it. So quick recap. The DF64V baseline with no beans was kind of the winner. It was 41.8 decibels. Where the Atom 75 with no beans is 54 decibels. So still extremely quiet on both. The full speed on both, the DF64V at 1800 RPMs with beans, we peaked at about 83.6 decibels. To me, it doesn't sound that loud, but the Atom 75 with beans is a pretty remarkable 68.5 decibels. So quite a bit lower on the Atom 75, but still the DF64V, I mean, it's crazy. It's one of the quietest grinders I've ever used, so a little bit surprised. So after that, we went and we just looked at the DF64V at a couple different RPMs. And what I noticed was the slower we went, the decibels went down quite a bit. So at 1200 RPM with beans, it was about approximately 80 decibels. At 600 RPMs, which is half the speed of the 12, with the no lid, I've noticed yesterday when I was playing with this that putting the lid on really does make a difference in terms of noise. So about half of it was ground with the lid and bellow installed, and the other half was without the lid and the bellow. And at 600 RPM, no lid or bellow was about 75.6 decibels. And then once we put the lid on, it dropped to about 73. So again, it is very quiet. The 73, we're still not close to the Atom 75 at 68.5 decibels. Decibels, they're a logarithmic scale, so it's a little bit hard to understand, but we're talking extremely quiet. So I did this on another sound comparison video. I looked up just kind of some average decibels for various things going on in the world. So your normal conversation is typically about 60 decibels. A quiet office is maybe 50 decibels. So pretty much as quiet as it can get, people just barely moving around, is about 50 decibels. And your average conversation is about 60. If we take a shower, just the noise of the the water and everything, it's about 70 decibels. And a toilet flushing is 80 decibels. So again, I don't really consider those extremely loud things. They're things that we probably ignore, but they do make some noise. Going up to the 80 decibel point, it compares it to an alarm clock or a truck driving by outdoors. I guess it depends on how loud the truck is, because there's some pretty loud trucks. When we get up into the 90 decibels, they're comparing it to the average noise level of a personal radio. So really not that loud. I guess obviously if you have people at home in the morning, really loud radio is going to make quite a bit of noise, but we're talking below, I think the highest today was 83.6 decibels. So 83.6 is not in the harmful noise range for your ears. It's not even really that big a deal. Looking at this chart, 80 to 90 is heavy traffic, your air conditioner running, possibly a noisy restaurant, a lawnmower outdoors. So very quiet and very nice sound. So thanks for watching. Let me know. We need to do probably a couple other noise comparisons. I don't have any of the newer Baratza grinders, but that's one of the loudest grinders I've ever used, was the 270. Did really good, but it was very loud. I have a quite old Baratza that I guess we could play with. Let's see, what other, I guess maybe we can compare it against just the DF64 and the 83 and the E. Probably just a very simple test at full speed on all of those, since they're not adjustable speed. I can tell you right now that they are louder than this grinder, at least in my ears perception, but I guess we'll find out. Maybe not. I've been a little bit surprised today, especially with the 1800 RPMs and beans, but very quiet, super fast. I've been loving it so far. Only had it for right at 24 hours, about right now. So make sure to check back. We'll have more cool content. Thanks.